Hi, Knox Camps, and welcome to the Week 4, Day 4 Instructional for Challenge. During the last instructional for Challenge this week, Boots taught you guys how to use this application called Scratch, which I will also be using for this lesson. Now, if you guys did the last instructional, you'll know that Scratch is used for coding, so we will be continuing that today. And our goal for today will be to attempt to code another game. But before we get into coding the game, we're going to do some review, and we're going to remember how to use Scratch. So we're going to start off by going to the same website as we did last time, scratch.mit.edu. And once you guys are there and ready, you can hit start creating. A project like this should appear. And just as Boots did in the last video, we will start by closing these tutorials. We're going to go over this little sprite here in the corner, and we're going to press the trash bin to get rid of that. Before we get into the actual coding of our games, we are going to start off by explaining what the game is. So the game is going to be a basic falling game kind of thing. I've seen lots of them where things are falling from the ceiling, and then we have a basket moving back and forth. As things come down, you're going to try to catch them. And if it lands in the basket, you get a point. If it hits the ground, you don't get the points. Now, guys, so we've successfully explained what the game is. We're going to start the actual coding and drawing aspect. So to start, we are going to move over here to where it says choose a sprite. And in this one, we don't need to choose any special things. We're just trying to create a box, some circles, so not to make it too difficult for ourselves. So we're just going to go over here to the paint options, and it'll bring us back to this screen, where instead of code, we're over at costumes now. So with this one, we're going to start by selecting the rectangle, and we're going to create our basket. You can make a more advanced basket if you like, using the other two sprite options, but I am just going to make a basic rectangle. Not too wide because the screen's not that wide. We don't want to make it too easy. And a little thick so that we can see it. So just like that. Now, if you guys want, you can change the color. So going here and sliding this bar to change the color. I personally like blue, so I'm going to stick with that for the base one. You want to make sure that there's no outline, so it has this little bar through it, as selected here, to make sure that we have no outline because we don't need an outline. It looks simpler and looks fine like this. Now we're going to click on it with the select tool. There we go, just like that. And we're going to drag it until it clicks in the middle. See, just like that. That middle diagonal, it's going to click right in. So now we're in the middle, and now we have our shape. So now we can go back to the coding part, and now look at this. We have our shape, which is free to move around, and we can use as much as we want. Very cool. So this will be our basket, which we're going to be placing at the bottom. So for now, we can just kind of move it around and put it there. Now we're going to make some falling shapes to fall, because we'll do all the sprites at the beginning, like all the drawings, and then we'll get to the actual coding part. So next, we go back here. We go back to the paint section, click on that, and this time we're going to hit circle. So we grab the circle. So we're going to drag that over, click it right into the middle again. We're going to pick a different color since it's falling. I personally like the color red. That's a nice red. So click that, and we go to the select tool so we can reselect it, and we can make it a little bit bigger. Personally, I don't think we should have them that big because we want to make them hard to grab. So I'm going to make it about that big. Now that we have it, we drag it into the middle again until it clicks. Now you can see the object appear over here. We can go back to the coding part. Now, instead of just making a lot of these little circles, I am gonna click on it. Down here, we have our sprite selected. I'm gonna right click or double click if you're working on a laptop. It's gonna show up with duplicate, export, and delete. Now we don't wanna export it or delete it, but we will hit duplicate. So now we have two sprites that look exactly the same. And we want to tell the difference between our objects. So we're going to click on it, go to costumes, and then we can change the color. I'm going to make this one maybe a pink one for this one. Click out, hit the fill option, click it to make sure. Go back to code, and now we have two different ones. Now, for each of these that we do, we are going to duplicate them again, either sprite 2 or sprite 3. Continue to duplicate until you have enough that you think you're happy with. And I've already duplicated plenty of these sprites, as you can see down here. I can scroll, and I've created 12 objects to be falling, and I've changed the color of them. So I initially made 3 different colors. I made a red, pink, and a green, and I duplicated each 3 additional times. I'm going to start by renaming it. Since that's what we're going to be using as our quote-unquote basket, I'm going to name it basket, just like so. And the other ones are okay. We can just leave those because it's not a big deal. They will be used anyways. We can now move on to the actual coding. So to start off, we are going to be using the basket because it's simpler than these objects. We can do those individually afterwards. So we're going to start off with this basket. To start off, we need something that starts off the location of this. We don't want it to be at a random spot. To keep it at the bottom, we need a starting location. So we're going to go to movement, and then we have this part, which is go to X and Y. The X is the left and right. The Y is the up and down. Now with this, 0, 0 is in the middle. So if you go to the left, it's negative. If you go to the right, it's positive X. If you go up, it's positive. If you go down, it's negative Y. So just set it right in the middle. We just change it to 0 and 0. Now this won't do anything when we hit the starting flag. So we're going to go to events and we're going to grab this. So one click. This way, when we hit the flag, we can test it out. So press it and boom, pops right into the middle of the screen, which is good. We can stop that. We can move freely again. Now we want the X to be in the middle. We want the Y to be close to the bottom. Negative 160. We hit play and boom, look at that. Right in the middle between them, it's perfect. Now that we have that all set and ready, we can move on to the next part, which is moving the paddle back and forth. So in order to move the paddle back and forth, we're going to go into the control section. To start, we're going to grab this forever loop so that it repeats, because we want it to always be checking. We don't want it just once or just really quickly. We want it the whole time to always be checking over and over again if we're pressing the left key or the right key. We're going to use the arrow keys to move, because for me, that's the easiest. If you guys want to make it a different key, that's totally fine. Just make sure you know what you're doing. So now we grab this if part to put in there, which is the actual part that checks. So if left arrow key is pressed, then we can make it do something. So we're going to go into the sensing, because the keys are under sensing, and we grab key space pressed. So right when it lights up there, you release it, clicks into place, we're all ready to go. We can click the drop down and hit left arrow. So now key, when the left arrow is pressed, then it does something. Now what do we want it to do? We want it to move left. So we can go to motion for moving, and we can grab this one, which is move 10 steps. 10 steps. Now, to go to the right is positive, but the left is negative. So we want to make it a negative number that's going to the left. So we're going to go -5, because I think 10's a bit fast. So to test her out, we can hit start, and look at that. I press the left and it moves. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. Perfect. But the right arrow key does not work yet, because we have to add that. So that will be the next step. So to do that, we're just going to grab this one part and hit duplicate. Look at that, all perfect. Put it in right below it. And now, ooh, that was inside of it. We got to make it outside of it. Right there, see? You don't want it in it, because then it's like doubled up. You want them separate, but both in the forever, but not in each other's. It's just like that. Press this, little down arrow here. Now we're going to make it a right arrow. And since it's positive, or we want it to go right, we can do 5 instead of -5. And just like that, we hit start. And then I hit the left and right arrow keys, which you can't see, but I'll let you know that I am doing. And it works perfectly. So now, there you have it. We have our basket all completed. Now in this next section, we are going to be doing the movement of the balls, which is awesome. So we're going to start off here with sprite 2, which happens to be over here. It lit up. Just to check, we can click it. Yeah, that was the one. It's going to be this one. Now the balls we want falling from the ceiling. So to start off, we can do this. So we can grab one of these move ones over here, and remember to go to events You grab your when clicked because we want that to start. Now it's not going up, it's going down, so that means negative. Negative down. Like when you're counting backwards, you're getting smaller numbers, not bigger numbers. So we're going to grab -5. So it moves -5 steps downward for this thing when clicked. So we click that. Oh, there we go. It only happens once though, because I forgot it's not in a loop. We're going to look through these and remembering it's in control. We grab forever. We put it around the 5 steps. So then when this is clicked forever, it just goes back. Luckily, it's in there. So we stop it, pull it over here again. We hit go, and zoom, it zooms across the screen. I think that's a little bit fast. So I think I'm going to do -4. I think that's a good number. I'm going to pull it over here, hit go. Perfect. Nice and fun. Stop. We can stop it. We don't want it to go in that direction. We want it to go downward, not left. So right now, its direction is 90 degrees. So negative. So it would be going that way, but it's negative, so it's going the opposite direction. To start, make it easier, we're going to switch this to positive, which I should have done at the beginning. And now when we press it, it goes right. So right now it's going that way. So you just point the arrow in the direction we want it to. We can go anywhere. Right now, the best is if we click it right down there at 180 is what I'm trying to get. It doesn't seem to want to go there, so I am just going to type it in. And we hit start. Whoa, look at that. It follows perfect. Exactly what we wanted it to do. So now in this game, we want it to fall down and hit this paddle, and then you get a point if it lands in the basket when it hits the paddle. But before we do that, we want to see what happens when it hits the ground. Because when it hits the ground, we don't want it to just disappear, because then we only have 12 things that can fall, and then that's it. I'm going to lose. So we want it to jump back up at the top and then fall again. We want it to pick a random location across the top where it's going to appear. It's always going to start at the same spot at the top. We want it to pick a random spot, so you can't like predict where it is. So we're going to grab this one in the operators section. So you go motion, operators, and it's right at the top here. Pick random 1 to 10. So it's going to, the computer is going to come up with a random number. If I stick it right on the line, it's about -230. So that's good. So we're going to go back to our sprite, click on this, and we're going to do -230 to 230. So then it can pick from the left side all the way to the right. It can pick a random number where our thing can spawn. So where our thing. Now the only challenge here is now we just have a random pick number. We haven't actually made it so that the ball goes there, and we haven't checked so it's if it touches the bottom. Now as our next step, we should see where the bottom is to make sure first. So we go back to sprite 2. We drag it down here. We want the Y. So -170 looks about the bottom. So we are going to grab in control. We're going to grab another if to put in here because we want it to run forever, always checking if it's against the ground. So we go if. We go back to operators. So we can grab these. So we're going to do the less than 1. Oh, we got to let it click into place. So if, and then back here. So we're going to grab Y position, click it in there. So less than, and we checked what it was, and it was 170. So once it's less than 170, so it's falling below the bottom of the screen, or it's at the bottom of the screen, then we do something. So then we want it to use this random number. So then we have to change the Y. So we can do this. So we can do set Y. And we're going to make that the top. So we're going to set that to 170. If the bottom's -170, top will be 170. So it sets the Y to the top. And then set X is the other one we want. So left and right on the screen. We're going to drag and drop, pick random right until it clicks in there. So now look at that. So it sets X to pick a random number between there. So it can spawn anywhere left and right. Now we're going to try this code out and make sure that it works. So it hits the bottom, and look at that. It follows a random one. Woo, that's kind of fun. So now it just slides down and picks a random position. Nice and fun. So now we're going to hit stops. It stops doing that. Now our code for that is done, except for the colliding part where it collides with this. So for this section, in a second, I'm going to show you guys how to copy this part to all the other ones. So all the balls do the same kind of thing. Now I've realized that I probably shouldn't have copied all these other balls earlier, because now we have to copy them all to each one, which is going to be a lot of work. So we're going to keep one of each color that we've made. But then these other next ones, we are just going to press this garbage button and throw them out. So I go back to Sprite 2 now, which is the one that has it working. So we click this. Oops. Uh-oh. There we go, all of it. And then to copy it, we're going to drag it over into here. And you can see that when I held it over, it shook a little bit. So we're going to go there, and then boom, it's copied. And we don't want it going right now, so I'm just going to hit stop on that. But we now have Sprite 2 and Sprite 3. There we go, all of this, there we go. And the one problem with this is that everything, I think, should work the same, except the direction was not changed, because that's just part of this, unfortunately. So we are going to have to go into direction and change it back to 180 and then click out. Then it should work the same as the red. And hit go. I believe it should work. Look at that. It works perfectly. It seems to be falling properly, and I love that. That's great. So we're going to hit stop, drag this back up, similar spot for that one. And then there we go. So we have them. We're going to do the same thing where we grab the whole thing, put it over the third sprite where it shakes a little bit, throw it in there. Now this one should also be working. The only thing we need to change is the direction on this one. So we change that to 180, just like that. They're falling. And now we just need to add a few more of the other balls. And now one thing that I forgot to add earlier is we have a pick random for the set X position 2, but that's only once we have it. We don't have any starting positions. So I can stick it over here, press stop, I press start, and look at that. It goes fine again. But the only problem is when we stop the game and we restart it, they start just where they are again, which is not what we want. So right before this one clicked, we go in here, the set Y and set X, these two little things here, we are going to grab, and then we can right click and hit duplicate. And now look, I got two of these, drag them up here to the space. So before the forever, because we don't want it to always set, we just want it just for now. So the starting is Y is at 170. We want it to start at the top every time we press start on the game. So that makes sense. I'm just going to hit stop. It's kind of bugging me there. And now we're going to have it pick random. So at the start of the game, it picks it, and then it goes into the forever. And then once it's less than 170, then it repicks it. So now watch this. We hit stop. Now every time we hit start, it should start right at the top, at least for red, because that is the one we've done. And red spawned at the top, just like we wanted it to. We're going to remove this and take this because we forgot this part in the other two as well. So we want them to do the same thing. We can just simply drag it over here, wait till it shakes in 3, grab this, wait till it shakes in Sprite 4, and then back on Sprite 2, we can reattach it. So now it says an upload thing. And now, somewhere in here, here it is, weird spot to put it, we have our set. We can grab this, put it where we did before, right there, and then we can set the Y. Now, one problem that we're going to have with this is that they're all going to start at this, come down at the same time, and obviously with the basket, you can't catch them all. So each sprite we're going to want to make a little different for the thing. But I don't want to make a bunch of different numbers, so we're going to use this pick random part again. So we're going to drag that out, duplicate it, throw it into the set Y. We can put this one back where it was. Now, we don't want so much range. We just want a little bit of range. So we are going to go from 170, which is the top, to maybe 300. And now I forgot we didn't include this one in the first one. So we're going to drag that into Sprite 2 as well. Now I believe it's over here. There we go. So now we can grab this, drag that into the set Y, and now it also has it. So now the first two are identical. Sorry that it was a bit complicated what I did there. If you aren't following, go back and copy what I've done. Or you can delete what you have in other sprites and simply recopy the whole thing if you find that easier, which I will show you how to do for the third one. I drop that into Sprite 4, click on Sprite 4. Now I have this one's the incomplete one. I can hit the delete key twice and remove that part of it. And now I have this all ready to go. So now I believe when I hit start, they all came down at the same time. Unfortunately, I believe that we can't have them start at 300 because that is above the screen. So for this part of it, we are just going to have them start lower, and the first part of the score will not be so great. Which is unfortunate, but that's okay. So instead, we can go from maybe 0 to make them halfway to 170. I'm going to change that for all of them because it's not that hard to do. 0 to 170. So from the middle to the roof is going to be the starting point. So now I believe when we hit start, just like that. Now they pick up the random stop. We hit start again. They randomly start once again. And just like that, they all start. So that's perfect. But last thing, I think I will just make this a little lower, just to be safe and make sure that we have lots of range so they aren't all falling in the same spot. Perfect. And just like that, we have a random set Y position. So we go, and stop, and go, and stop, and go. And as you can see, they appear very random, and they are random. Now, unfortunately, I had already recorded this section of the video, but I realized that it wasn't easy to understand, so I'm going to try to redo it and make it more understandable. So as you may notice, some of my things may be a little different than they were in the last section of the video. So to start off, we're going to make a variable to record our score. So we're going to go over here into variables, click on this, and now we don't want this one that they've already created called my variable, so we're going to delete the my variable, and we're going to make our own variable. You want to make sure it's for all sprites, and we are going to call this score. So we're going to hit OK, and then just like that, we have our score variable. We're going to make sure the check mark's up so you can see this. We go over here, we right click on it and hit large readout. So it's just that, we don't need to see the variable, and our score will be presented up there. Now the first thing we want to do is every time we play, we want to set score to something. So we're going to grab this and put it as part of the basket. It says score to 0. So every time flag is clicked, it sets to 0. So each time you play, it's like a new game, and then you can save whatever score you got. And we'll do that along with the set location because we only want to do it once, not every time and forever. So just that first time we go in, it sets us to 0, nice and easy. Now the next part is the collision. So we don't need to do anything with the basket because we're fine with that, just moving. We're just going to make it. So with the sprites, we're going to click on these, and we're just going to make it so that the score will increase when they collide with this. So as you can see, we already have a random location at which they start, which is good. And we have this if. Now this you guys won't have yet because we haven't created, but I made this ahead of time. The other sprites do not have it yet. So I will show you guys how to get this. And this is the part. So if it's touching the basket, then it resets it. So to a new the location back at the top, set Y to 170. So it starts it back up there, and we set the X to pick random. So it'll pick a random spot, basically randomizing it where it starts. So it's basically the same as this one. We have right here beside it, these two, the same, except instead of touching the bottom, it touches the basket. The only difference with this one is it increases our score by 1, so we get 1 extra point. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do this. So we're going to go into control, we grab our if to start, then sensing, because that's the next part, so touching. So we grab touching, Make sure there's that white thing there, drop it in, click it into place. We select collision with the basket because that's what we want. We go back up to motion. In fact, we could have just copied it from here. We can drag these out for now. Click that, duplicate, click it right into there. Nice and easy. So there we go. So we didn't have to do that. This last part here, we have in variables. So we want to change score by 1. That's perfect. That's what we need. As you can see, these two things here are the same. I will delete my old one using the delete key and grab this one, slide it in right there. But before we do that, we're going to copy it to the other one. So I'm going to grab it, drag it to sprite 3 so that sprite 3 shakes a little bit, release, drag it into sprite 4 so it shakes a bit, release. Now make sure we're back in sprite 2. We put that if in there so that it repeats and checks always if there, so that increases the score. We grab this part, we make sure it's underneath the if. Let's check for the first one, it is. And last but not least, this one, it's over top of it. Careful for that, sometimes they overlap and look like one. Make sure you don't have duplicates or extra code you don't need. So now we have identical code for these three, just 3 different colors. So now it should be, we press score, they fall down, 0 points, but once one touches the basket, it resets and we get a point, which is perfect. It's exactly what we wanted. And I can use the arrow keys to move, to make into them. And there we go. More points. As you can see, when we hit stop, it freezes. We hit start again, it resets them to a random spot. Stop, start, and resets them to a random point. And guys, that is basically it. That is our game. Now, the only last minute thing we need to do is now we duplicate these sprites. Earlier, I did it too early and then I had to move stuff and it was annoying. So now is when we're going to do the duplication. So right click, duplicate, 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 and duplicate. And we, oh, missed one. There we go. Next up is green. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's only 2. I guess it didn't work. That's unfortunate. And there we go. And now we have our 5 greens, our 4 greens, 4 pinks, and 4 reds. Now we have all the sprites. So now we hit stop, we hit go, and just like that, collecting them, they all fall, and that is our game. I hope you guys enjoyed challenge week 4 and our second day, as it's a little bit complicated for a game. If you guys didn't understand it fully, that's okay. Feel free to go back in the video, try watching it again, look at my steps, try making your own games. If you have questions, I'm sure we'll be able to answer them on Friday when you guys come back. Thanks so much for coming. I had a lot of fun doing this and I hope you guys did too.